weapon, not only would there be severe consequences for the Russian military, there would be severe consequences for him.
But what does that mean,
he is the
John?
decision
Because
maker.
I want you to kind of make that more understandable, for the audience. The current NSA, National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, last week said the United States will, quote, respond decisively to any nuclear weapon, and said that the U.S. has spelled out in greater detail exactly what that would mean in top-level talks with senior Russian officials. Well, it certainly hasn't quieted them down. What could you do other than an exchange of nuclear weapons, which nobody would want?
Well, I think we should say publicly that if Putin did authorize the use of a nuclear weapon, he would be signing his own suicide note. And I think that needs to be clear publicly so that everybody in the Russian military, intelligence, domestic security conglomerate knows how much is at risk here. This is a very serious step, and as I say, we all know where that decision would come from, and he should bear the ultimate responsibility. He needs to know that. There shouldn't be any ambiguity on the point.
But do you think that he believes, and do you believe, that the United States has the ability to reach out and touch Putin in that way?
I think we can. I think we've demonstrated we've got that ability in giving Qasem Soleimani, the head of the Iranian Quds Force, an early exit, and we can find Putin as well. This is something that the use of a nuclear weapon here, the first time in war since 1945, this is a huge step. And if Putin can execute that maneuver and get away with it by staying in power, it is a terrible signal to Iran, to North Korea, to China. So I do think it's worth considering exactly how we're going to try and deter Putin from doing it. Let's face it, the fact this war began on February the 24th means the West failed. We failed to deter Putin from invading. We failed to deter him in 2014 as well. So these failures of deterrence, in his mind, I'm afraid, are giving him the wrong message.
Now the question is, what resolve will we have politically to make the right choices going forward so it doesn't get worse? Ambassador John Bolton, thank you so much. Appreciate you, especially on the first night. I'll see you again soon.
Very glad to do it.
All right. So there you have it. Two people from the left and the right, very much on the same page. The question is, will our current leaders do the right thing? I'll be right back with Bill Maher. You hear a lot about Trevor Noah and John Oliver, but did you know that Bill Maher has the biggest cable ratings in political humor and satire? And he does for a reason. He goes at both sides. He favors people like you. That's why his HBO show, Real Time with Bill Maher, is must watch, and his ideas about our politics have driven so much controversy. So who better to set the table for what needs to get better than the man himself? I spoke with Bill right after his show on Friday night. Here's what he had to say.
I want you to hold up a second. I want you to hear what I'm about to say. My radical opponents.
Appreciate you being on. I really do. Thank you, Bill.
Always great to be with you, Chris.
All right, so let me get some context for you. Last week, you said many people, both Democrats and Republicans, are anti-American. You don't love America if you hate what it stands for. Explain.
I don't know if I used the word anti-American, but I asked the question, what do you like about America? Because I think it's a relevant question to ask people in this country at this moment, why are you fighting so hard for it if you don't seem to like anything in it? And then I mentioned first with the Republicans, they don't seem to really care very much for democracy. They stood with a guy who tried to have a coup and still are. They don't have a lot of good words to say about law enforcement, which always was kind of a big part of their portfolio. The FBI, they're constantly attacking them, even the military. So what do you like about America? Why are you fighting for it so hard? And on the left, there's just this constant malaise about what a horrible country we are and our sorry history. And yes, we do have a sorry history with a lot to be sorry about. But it's still, in perspective, the last best hope. And we are a country that does change. It has made a lot of progress. So I don't know why everyone has to be that down on it. And I just think we have a lot of problems in this country right now. We don't need to add to it by just having this ridiculous sort of hatred of our own situation and our own country, that there's actually a lot of good still there.
What do you think our biggest problem is?
Well, I think there's always the environment is always looming over us, but that's more of a long term, although it's getting shorter. I mean, we see it, you know, with the hurricane in Florida. Not that hurricanes haven't always hit Florida, but obviously these weather events that happen out here, it's incredible drought and fires. These events that happen are obviously souped up. They're obviously worse than they used to be. And so that is always number one on my list. So I'm kind of thrilled that we finally got a president who finally got a bill passed that at least starts to address this. The more immediate problem,
What's
of course,
the more immediate?
The more immediate one is democracy. That's not, you know, 5 years, 10 years. That's a few years away because, trust me, in January of 2025, Donald Trump is going to show up for the inauguration whether he wins or not.
You really
and
believe
that's a real
that?
problem. I totally believe
You think
that.
he's going to run again?
He's definitely going. Of course he's going to run again. Are you kidding? He thinks about nothing but. It's everything he loves. It's a fight. It's revenge. He hasn't given up on he hasn't conceded the last election. Of course he's going to run again. And if he does, it'd be very hard to deny him the nomination. I mean, his fans are rabid. Now, much less of the Republican Party wants him as the standard bearer than last time, but good luck trying to take it away from him. We know what kind of a gutter fighter he is when he gets into a scrap, so good luck with that, DeSantis. And then when he runs, I mean, anything is possible. I mean, look, half the country just will never vote for a Democrat for whatever reason, ever. So you're already at 50-50 when you begin.
Do you believe that
yes,
we're really 50-50, or do you believe that that is an exaggerated projection of our social media reality that many of us in the media echo as if it were true vox populi, a true reflection of this country?
Well, I don't know. If you break it down by what matters, which is states, because we have an electoral college, it just seems to be a very close race every time. And, you know, one headline I can always predict in early November is race tightens. Hard to predict who. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people in this country who just have their mind made up based on party before the nominees are even out there. It doesn't really matter. 20% less Republicans want Trump to be the standard bearer next time, and yet if it's Trump versus the Democrat, it's a dead heat. That should tell you a lot.
And what do you think about on the other side of the ball? Do you think President Biden will run again? Do you think he should run again?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about on my show tonight. It's a very strange paradox that's going on with Joe Biden right now. I notice it when I talk to friends. The first thing out of their mouth about Joe Biden is, well, he shouldn't run again. And then you say, well, do you think he's doing a good job? He's doing great. He's doing great. We won't run any more of that. It tells you that this country's ageist. And so they just are obsessed with the idea that he's 79 years old. And they think anybody that age is about to keel over. And, you know, obviously, as you get into that age range, the possibility is higher. It's also higher that you're wiser, which is why he has gotten so much done in the last year. Because he's been there, he's done that, he's seen that movie before, he's seen the pattern, it came around again, he knew what to do. He did wind up getting things done that nobody thought he could get done, like having Congress work together on a number of really important bills. Climate change, as I just mentioned. I thought he handled sorry, I got my wars mixed up. Handled Ukraine, I think, as well as that could have been handled. So, first of all, I think he will run again because I think once you are president, you don't give it up. That is a piece of real estate he has been trying to get for a very long time. He finally got it. And as I say, he's been rather successful in a lot of major areas. Why would you give it up? And who's going to take it away from him?
Would you prefer somebody other than Biden?
Like who? Name somebody and I'll tell you.
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you the question.
Exactly, and that's the problem that the Democrats have when you go, oh, we don't want Biden, then who? Oh, now you're stumped.
What about the VP?
I mean, well, that's an interesting question, too, because obviously one reason that Biden's age is an issue with a lot of people is, again, they think he's going to die tomorrow, so they are very hyper-concerned about who the vice president is. It takes on more relevance when the president is elderly. So the fact that Kamala Harris is not popular at all is a real detriment for the Democrats. Now, it's not unheard of for presidents to switch their VP choice after one term. It's been done before, and he could choose somebody else.
Would you suggest that, and if so, whom?
I mean, yes, I would suggest it, actually. And I like Kamala Harris, but for some reason, she has not turned out to be a very good politician, and I don't know if she can reverse sometimes a reputation just takes on a life of its own. It's not even the person's fault, mainly.
But who would you pick? Who do you think's better for Biden than Harris?
Oh, I have no idea.
And who do you think Trump should run with? Do you think that there's anyone he could run with that would make him more palatable to you or anybody else who doesn't like him? That's what you call an old school cliffhanger, because Bill had quite a surprising answer to that question, and we're going to play the rest of the interview, part 2, tomorrow night with Bill Maher. Now, you want more Maher? Be sure to catch Real Time with Bill Maher Friday nights on HBO and HBO Max. You can check out Bill's podcast. Maybe I'll even be on it at some point. Club Random. There are new episodes released weekly on all podcast platforms. Bill's going to be doing stand-up at the New York Comedy Festival November 12th here in New York at the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden. He's also proof of concept for us. We're going to talk politics, but not always with politicians. Provocative thinkers that make you think. You agree, you disagree, but you get to think, and that's the key. So, how about what you think about what you want to say to me? Agree, disagree? Where's the black suit? Get ready to call in and let me know. But next, a giant of journalism, still grabbing headlines, got more Twitter followers than I do. Dan Rather weighs in on the state of play in this country and the man that he can't stop tweeting about. Next.
Don't buy another pair of glasses until you've seen what this new invention can do. These self-adjustable glasses
Don't push me. Take your hands off of me unless you plan to arrest me.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
With the 1st Marine Division in South Vietnam.
CBS News has gained unprecedented access here from in front of the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin, Germany.
Kuwait City. Dan Rather reporting. Good night.
The OAO, the one and only Dan Rather. At 90 years of age, he can still teach me more about this job in 5 minutes than I've learned in 15 years. And now he's got 2.7 million Twitter followers. If anyone thought he slowed down, they're wrong. Dan Rather joins us right now. Thank you so much, Big Brother, for being on the show, especially on this first night.
Well, Chris, thank you very much for having me, and I do wish you good luck and Godspeed with your new program.
Thank you. 2.7 million Twitter followers. Is that you writing all those tweets?
Naturally, I have help, Chris, but I can say truthfully that nothing goes on the internet that I haven't been intimately involved with. But yes, I write the tweets, and yes, I write Steady, which is a newsletter we do 3 times a week. It's full-time work, and I have a collaborator, Elliot Kirchner, and together we do everything that's out there. I can tell you that nobody is more amazed that I would have that many Twitter followers or that many people subscribing to a newsletter than I am. That as you will remember, I surprise easily, but I have been really pleasantly surprised by that and very thankful for it.
You throw a lot of punches on Twitter. There are opinionated things, there are pointed things, there's some snarky things. You were never really like that on air. Is that intentional, and does it reflect different feelings now than you used to have?
Well, I don't think it reflects any different opinions, Chris. It's certainly, journalism has changed greatly, but what hasn't changed? I've been a working journalist for more than 70 years. That's 70 years. So what hasn't changed in more than 70 years? But, on social media, what I've found is you better write something that's interesting or people are not going to care. On the other hand, you don't want to get so caught up in writing something interesting that you don't write something that matters. And I can just say that in the same way I've grown as a person and grown in some of my opinions about things, that pretty much I'm still the same Dan Rather I was when I first went to work at CBS News way back in 1962.
Well, you still got a great head of hair and you got a great voice. Give some perspective to my new audience here, Dan. Where do you think things stand in terms of the dialogue in this country and the risks that we currently face?
Well, first of all, we need to understand, I think we do understand, that this is a serious and dangerous moment in the American story. However, if we stop and take a deep breath, we also know that this country's been through a hell of a lot in the past. The Great Civil War in the middle of the 19th century, the 1960s when we had all those assassinations and a great war that split the country apart. That it's not in the American character to be fearful. And, you know, to try to answer your question directly, I think that one of the things that's bothering me and bothers some people is that we lack unity. We're at our best when we are united. After the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in 1941, we pulled ourselves together. After we were attacked on 9/11, we pulled ourselves together. That we know how to play team. We know how to be united. And that we tend to forget in the rush of daily journalism and headlines and work about what's happening this second and the next second. What a tremendous country this is. You know, this is still a very good country. There's a lot of beauty and goodness in this country. And I don't want to come on like some, you know, preacher or something, but we need to remember that. And the struggle at the moment is to hold the country together. And we've had these moments before, but this is one of those moments where we're not as united as we need to be. And the world is perilous out there. Look at what's happening in Russia, Iran, China. I mean, there's danger everywhere. So we need to be more united, and we need to take a more moderate approach. We'll get down to a definition of the word moderate, but a more moderate approach to how we view one another. Just because we disagree with somebody else doesn't mean that first of all, it doesn't mean necessarily that they're wrong. And secondly, it doesn't mean that we can't get together with them for the good of the country. But the essential danger right now, the core of it, and the reason that people are worried or so much, and I would include myself in this, is that the very foundation of our constitutional republic, based on the principles of freedom and democracy, are being challenged.
Yes, sir.
That our institutions have suffered great damage. Our traditional ways, our understanding about one another. So we need more unity and more moderation in dealing with one another. And if we don't get it, go ahead.
That's a good way to end it. Dan Rather, I appreciate you very much. You once told me that journalism is an act of faith in the future. And I think that we're all going to try to do our part to make sure we can get to a better place. And I appreciate you so much, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you, Chris. Good luck. Godspeed.
All right. Thank you very much to Dan Rather, and thanks to you. We'll be right back after this break. The good news is we're going to keep doing phone calls. A lot of you called tonight. I love it. Keep it coming. The bad news is none of you come before my mother. When my mother called into the show tonight, she was getting on air. I'll tell you that right now. Mom, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Now, don't tell anybody I paid you to call me and to be nice. But did I look good on the show? That's all that matters.
Okay, you do look very well.
What did you think of the show? Did you hear Dan Rather?
Yes, I've been listening and watching it. It's very important. It really is, more than you can tell, Chris. And you being on the show, you're just making everybody feel good. And they really believe what you say. So that's what I'm happy about, that you're going to relieve people about a lot of things that they can't figure out themselves. And this is good. It's very good.
And I always tell people, Mom, when I talk about what matters, you know, everybody says family first, you got to think about your family, but it's always been so important to you. And I tell them the story about how you put your book into the Pope's hand and said, La familia, that's the focus, and how much he loved it. And that it's always been important to you.
Yes, yes, yes. That's true. That's a lovely time to think of us, you know. It is really very touching.
Well, you've always meant family writ large, meaning everybody's family. You got to love, you got to care. Thank you, Mom, for loving me and for supporting me and for calling in tonight. I appreciate you, and thank you. On my first night, it means everything. I love you, Mom.
We all love you. We love you. Wish you well.
Thank you very much. I'll pay you later. All right, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you for being with me. This is the best comeback I could have hoped for, and I hope I see you again tomorrow. Bring a friend. My friend Dan Abrams starts right now. Hello.
This was not on purpose that you had your mother at the end of the show, and I have my father.
I know.
At
You
the top.
one-upped.
This is completely unplanned.
You one-upped me.
Well, I don't know about that. We shall see.
You got your father live in studio.
We will be talking about the big lawsuit that Donald Trump filed against CNN. But let me ask you before you go. Most undercovered story by the media in the last year, because, you know, I do a lot of media coverage. I do a lot of, you know, they're saying this, they're saying that. In your view, what's the most underappreciated story in the past year?
Without question, the war in Ukraine. I was shocked, not because of the commitment of the men and women in our business. They go into dangerous places and they stay all the time. The lack of commitment to covering the actual warfare in Ukraine, when people were there, they weren't there long and they were only in Kyiv. It was one of the big catalysts for me to make the decision to come back, because I know the American people don't really care, and it's gotten a little political in terms of why you should care. It matters too much. I couldn't believe there wasn't more commitment.
But, you know, more commitment, you mean more people actually in the war zones?
Oh, yeah. Well, we've always done that.
Yeah, yeah. But...
you know, I've spent my whole career, and I'm not a bang-bang person. You know, I'm not a war correspondent. I just go as part of my work. We have people who live those situations. And it's really important, especially now. I don't think America's interests have ever been more compromised abroad than in the outcome of what happens in Ukraine.
So you want to be going in the field?
Absolutely.
All right. Chris Cuomo, great to see you. Congrats on a great first show with some amazing guests, and it's great to have you here.
It's okay that you one-up me. I love your father.
We shall see.